So hello, everyone. I'm Kathy Kucsan. I'm the Education Director for the Colorado Music Festival and Center for Musical Arts. And this is the first of our Behind the Music chats for 2022. And so it's really my privilege today to welcome half of the Takács Quartet. We have Richard O'Neill, violist, and Harumi Rhodes, violinist. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. Takács will be our artists in residence for this summer, and you are going to be starting off opening night, actually after a premiere piece, with a concerto for string quartet and orchestra by John Adams, who's actually going to be our conductor and composer in residence later this summer. So welcome, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Kathy.
if you might be I wondered if you might just say a few words about Absolute Jest, which is your concerto.
Sure. Well, super excited about playing it, and of course, being part of such a festive occasion, the opening night. It's kind of the perfect piece for an opening celebration. The idea of having a solo string quartet in front of an orchestra, it's kind of like combining two different universes. You know, the whole town, the whole village, the whole universe, everybody coming together and celebrating. And the piece is very serious, but also very joyous at the same time, which is kind of a unique combination of things. It expresses a real joy of togetherness and of celebration of Beethoven's music, but also a real obsession and serious love for Beethoven's music, specifically the string quartet repertoire. And so it'll be a very joyous, wonderful way to open the season.
Great, thank you. Can you talk a little bit about, so I think Mr. Adams talks about the tattoos. He calls them Beethoven tattoos. So snippets or quotes of Beethoven pieces appearing throughout the concerto.
If they were tattoos, some of the tattoos are over all of the arms and the back. So let's say like this scherzo, maybe, I don't know if Harumi would agree, but maybe the scherzo from Opus 135, Beethoven's last quartet, that raucous, wild, actually sort of minimalist section in the middle of that, where the three lower strings are just sort of stuck on this sort of in this circle, and the first violin is going bonkers way up into the stratosphere and just jumping around. I think Adams, that would be at least one or two arms of tattoos. There's other I think Beethoven lovers in general, like if the piece starts off with this rhythm ta 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 ta, which I think probably is a reference to another sort of scherzo movement, the Ninth Symphony, the timpani rhythm. For other, I mean, your CMF audience, like Beethoven 4, there's this funny conversation where Beethoven 4 gets started after this sort of Beethoven 9 thing, where the scherzo again for Beethoven 4 starts, and the orchestra presents this question, but it doesn't get answered, so it just keeps on getting asked over and over again. And there's a lot of these tattoos that I think people in the audience will get a real chuckle because of, like, oh, I know that's hilarious, but then people that might not know the reference, they'll get to know the reference because it happens. It doesn't happen just once, it happens many times.
Yeah, so would you recommend that people listen for these specifically, or maybe just wait and be surprised by them? Are there any that you can just point out and say, oh, listen for this at this point? Or should we just be surprised?
You know, that's a really good question. I think, and I don't know how John Adams would answer that, but I think from my point of view, sort of anything goes. You know, it's one of those pieces where there's so much to be enjoyed, even without knowing Beethoven, because the way he uses the material is extremely inventive. And so there's a lot of music in there that is not only original, but is extremely creative and this spirit of invention that he talks about is really through every note of the piece. On the other hand, even if you don't study all the scores of Beethoven and do your research and all this stuff, I believe that these motives that he uses from Beethoven kind of serve as an earworm. And so you might kind of in the middle or at the end of the piece, even ask yourself, like, wait a minute, is that something that I'm recognizing from Beethoven? Or is that something that I'm recognizing from the beginning of the piece? Or is it an old friend that I'm recognizing from earlier in my life? Or, and so it becomes this kind of recognition process, which is also attached to this idea of obsession and also attached to this idea of joyfully recognizing old friends. When you see something you recognize, and Richard was just talking about this, it can make you smile, or it makes you joyful, or it could even make you laugh, this idea of recognition. And so it kind of invites the audience to participate as a listener, a really active listener, in ways that are very subtle and in ways that are maybe not so subtle. And so there's a lot of fun in that. In other words, the wit that he creates is sort of embedded with this serious process of being involved and actively participating in the whole process. And I think that's really cool.
I love that so much. Exactly how you said that. And the piece itself is not very old, as I understand. It's about 10 years old, and it probably hasn't been played a whole lot. So this is totally a special event, I think, for our audience. So logistically, will you be seated in front of the podium?
It's a very good question also. You're asking all these good questions. I think these things will be kind of discussed in the moment when we meet with Peter Engine and discuss, exactly, what his vision for the layout will be. I think my understanding is that we're going to stand, actually. With Andras, our cellist, will be, obviously he can't stand, or I guess he could, but that would be a long, that might feel like a long concert. But we'll maybe have some kind of a riser or a podium for him as a cello soloist would. I think we'll be in front of the orchestra, but hopefully in a way that we can really see Peter and still interact with the different sections and really be a part of the whole sound world.
And will you be amplified? Because I believe it calls for light amplification. So each of you will have a mic, which is really unusual.
Yes, I believe so. The score does indicate that there's light amplification for the string quartet, which is a really wise and savvy way of dealing with the acoustical issues of having a smaller string quartet in front of a larger orchestra, which is full of percussion and brass and winds and full strings.
Yeah, right. So let's see if I can articulate this question. So the string quartet as a unit is the soloist, but you are all individual soloists. So should we, as an audience, should we listen for the quartet as a whole? Or should we listen for individual voices, and or both?
Yeah, no, I'm hoping both. It's, I was just thinking about different sections in the piece as you were asking that question. And it's true, I can think off the top of my head, I can think of about one or two places, Richard, you can chime in if you want, one or two places where the string quartet is really independent, where there is some orchestration going on with us, but we're kind of left out on our own with small bits of color around us. And so those sections are actually they feel special. They feel rare in the piece. But overall, I would say we act as a unit with a unit that has a lot of counterpoint. So in other words, we're interacting with each other, but we're one unit that's being juxtaposed with the orchestra. And in many ways, that's very different from what we normally do, because what we normally do is create orchestral sounds and intimate sounds all on our lonesome selves. We don't we don't have that kind of backdrop and that interaction with such a large organism. So in general, I would agree that we act as a unit with lots of rich counterpoint, and that the dialogue between us and the orchestra is extremely important and really exciting.
Kathy, I might interject that of the other quartet concertos that I know or I've played, I think this piece is truly unique. And I guess it's if you think of maybe like Schoenberg, which is more like a concerto grosso style, where you have the string quartet and then you have the tutti and then you have the string quartet and the tutti, or let's say the Spohr, which is also similar, where it's more conventional classical in that sense, that the competing soloists are sort of given relief. I think what's really cool about this piece is oftentimes the quartet and the orchestra are completely overlapped in incredible fashions. I mean, the instrumentation alone, like cowbells and all these sorts of cool percussion instruments, and the sound worlds. I think it's maybe what I just adore about this piece is because it can go from, in the smallest section where maybe there's a solo cello and a little thing, to like the entire orchestra just going full throttle, banging on things, and just making a whole. I wouldn't say it's a big party. It's an incredible party of sound parts of the piece.
Well, I can't wait. I actually started listening to the piece when you were scheduled to open the 2020 festival, which of course never happened in person. So I can't wait to hear it live. Really, thank you. And just I want to let everyone know that you also have a concert on the 5th, just you as quartet, and I believe, let's see if I'm correct, Haydn, and a piece by Coleridge Taylor and the Dvorak Quartet. And could you just talk a little maybe about Coleridge Taylor and what that piece is like? Because I don't know, I had never heard it before. So that's great.
Sure. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece. It's one of these works that has 5 independent movements which work beautifully together, but each movement is really kind of a little gem on its own. It's 5 short Fantasy-Stücke or fantasy pieces. And each one has a very distinctive character. And I think the shortest one is about 2 minutes. They span between 1.5 minutes and 4 minutes or something. So they're really short, and all together they make a beautiful piece together. He wrote it when he was very young. Actually, relatively speaking, he passed away when he was 37. So when I say young, it's all relative. It was very young. And when he was a student, he did write 2 string quartets, one of which has been lost, and the other one is this. When we're used to playing these long 30, 35, sometimes 40, 45 minute works. And so it's such a wonderful privilege to be able to present these short gems where he really packs so much character and so much beauty in such a short amount of time.
It is a gorgeous piece. Yeah. So what will it be like for you playing in the Chautauqua Auditorium, which is a little bit big for a chamber music venue, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think on one hand, I agree, it's quite large. And there's something very festive about that, playing in a larger quasi outdoor space. I know it's not outdoor, but it has that kind of festival feeling to it. But in some ways, it actually kind of enables us to play more intimately. It enables us to really draw the audience in. And in moments where we want to let loose and really, again, sound like an orchestra, we have that flexibility. The space itself is something that we can play chamber music with. We can interact with all the surface area and moving all the molecules in the room, and that space in particular has a feeling of kind of bringing everyone together. And I think there's no more beautiful way to do that than with a string quartet concert. Of course, I'm a little biased, but.
Well,
Kathy and her, I'm sorry, I wanted to interject that for me is, I don't think I would have had a proper debut concert with the Takács if it wasn't for you guys, for CMF and for Peter, and very graciously in the worst of the beginning of the pandemic, when the whole world was canceled and there were no concerts, that we met in the empty Chautauqua Auditorium, which I as a newcomer to Boulder, I was struck at how gorgeous the place is. Harumi had taken me very kindly to the dining room and on a hike up into the Flatirons, and I was in love with that aspect of your home. But to be on that stage when the whole world was sort of on pause and there was this big question mark, and to have Peter host us so graciously and to accept me into the quartet that way, I will always have very special feelings for that space, and to actually now return full throttle with a whole bunch of people and the whole orchestra, like I guess it's 2 years late, but it's better late than never, to celebrate together with my dearest friends, and now the audience will be just really special.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I want to say that one of the millions of things that's so wonderful about having Peter and Jin is a celebration of the string quartet, because of his background. And, there's just so much amazing music. And the fact that we get to have Takács as part of the music festival is just amazing. So, yeah, thank you so very much. And I think I will ask maybe we can get a link to some of the 2020 performances that you did, and so people watching this can access that as well. So
Wonderful.
Yeah. Any last comments before I let you go?
Oh, we can't wait. Can't wait for the season to start and to be together with everybody.
Yeah. Well, bravo in advance, and I can't wait to see you opening night. So thank you very much for taking your time, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Harumi.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.